Nottingham Forest Football Club can confirm that after a series of disappointing results and performances, Ange Postecoglou has been relieved of his duties as head coach with immediate effect. He's finally gone. The club have finally pulled the trigger and sacked Postecoglou after only 8 games in charge, but even then, it still feels too late. A majority of the fan base were not happy when Ange was announced initially, myself included, but backed the team nonetheless, and if he got results, everything would have been fine. But he didn't. And to be honest, he never really felt like the right fit for Forest either. Not least because his style of football is in stark contrast to how he played under both Cooper and under Nuno. Under those two managers, we were fairly hard to break down and thrived on the counter. Under Ange, we were a lot more attacking, we had a lot more of the ball, but we leaked worse than a sieve. Yeah, it was just very, very different to the football that Forest are used to be playing, these players are used to playing, and obviously it just didn't work. And I don't think it was ever going to work from the start, really. Ange was sacked almost immediately after our 3-0 loss to Chelsea, in which Forest conceded twice in 3 minutes. Both of those being from set pieces as well. That means that from the 8 games Ange was at the helm, we've conceded 10 set piece goals. What's going on? This was also a problem I remember having under Cooper, but that looked to have been remedied under Nuno. But it's reared its ugly head yet again. We once again cannot defend set pieces, and gave them quite a few, to be honest. Although you could argue that at least their second goal was not a deserved set piece. Marinakis actually left after their first goal went in, so I've got no doubt that he was waiting for Ange after the game, you know. But at the end of the day, like, it was his choice to appoint him, and it backfired majorly. Most of the fan base could see it from a mile off when it wasn't even confirmed. It was just heavily leaked that he was going to take the job, and all of us have been vindicated at our own club's expense. And now we're in damage control as Forest currently find themselves in the relegation zone as Burnley are currently beating Leeds. Great stuff. From a brilliant season, qualifying for Europe, finishing in 7th, to relegation. Good shit, lads. Quality. I'm glad it's never a dull day at this football club. Fucking hell. We actually played alright in the first half as well, and part of me thought that Ange had finally got things working and that we'd actually kick on from here. And if we could score goals, then we might have actually won that game. Maybe. We were 2-0 against Swansea and still lost, so who actually knows? Starting Taiwo was definitely a choice. I didn't hate it. It was a surprise to see him actually playing, but I didn't hate it. And both the fans and he looked up for it. You know, we were chanting his name, and he put himself about quite well, I thought. But unfortunately, the gamble didn't work. He couldn't score, and neither did anyone else on the team. Although we had our fair share of chances as well. It's very, very unfortunate. And it's something that has plagued us majorly under Ange. Yes, he plays this beautiful attacking football, lovely to watch, but you need players to score for that to be effective, and for whatever reason, a lot of our players are very inaccurate. Even against Betis, we were winning 2-1 at the point. We could have had 3, could have had 4, but we just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. And that was the same problem here, but we weren't even winning. And you know, it's a shame because there was a lot to celebrate about that first half. We were playing well, players were putting themselves about, good performances from a lot of our team. We looked fairly solid, to be honest. You know, Chelsea had more of the ball, they had more shots, but we looked in the game. We looked up with a fight. If only we could score. There were also some notable absentees on the bench as well. Alimundo, Hutchinson, Bakwa and Makati were nowhere to be seen. Some of our record signings, by the way, those are players that Ange would have had time with over the international break because they did travel with their countries. So it's even more bizarre as to why they didn't even feature on the bench. It's one thing them being on the bench and not playing, but they weren't even in the squad. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And it's likely that we'll never know the reason as to why they weren't included. Who knows? Who knows what's going on at this football club? I don't even think Forest know what's going on at this point. But even if they were on the bench, it's not like they could have salvaged that shit show of a second half. Oh my god. I like to joke they're a second half team, you know, we'll come out fighting in the second half. But we were absolutely shit. And the less said about that ref, the better. Because, oh my god, he was very, very bizarre and just not really that good at his job. I know we've lost and everything, but he made some very questionable calls in that game. Will it have changed the result? Probably not, but you know, he still was not good. Ange clearly should have gone during the international break, much like Nuno, and it now leaves the club scrambling for a replacement with our Europa game against Porto rapidly approaching. Oh joy. This is actually a very important match for Forest, because if we lose, then qualification to the next round looks extremely unlikely. We have to win all of our next Europa games if we lose to Porto. I don't even know if that's possible at this point. I really don't know. You want to establish this club as a European powerhouse, or just European regulars at the very least. Why would you employ Ange? Yes, he won it last season, but look at what happened in the league. It's not good. The fans were begging for Ange to be sacked during the international break. You know, give a new manager some time to learn the players, get used to them, implement his ideas. And once again, we were proven right. Now, I know the fans are not going to get everything right. We are fans at the end of the day. We're driven by passion, and football is more than just a passion business. But we could see, plain as day, that Ange was not the man for the job, and it was proven. Unfortunately, in 8 games that we're not going to get back. Hopefully, we've acted quick enough that it won't have an even larger impact on our season. We actually see ourselves relegated. I think we've got a good enough squad to avoid that, but we really need to knuckle down and get some points on the board, or we will go down. It's as simple as that. But Ange being sacked is the end of an era. We can move forward. Our season starts on Thursday if we have a new manager by then, or on the Sunday when we play Bournemouth. On my birthday, no less. We play the team that always beats us on my birthday. What a time to be alive. So yes, attention turns to his replacement. Who will Forest appoint to save our season? In my last video, I ran through a short selection of managers who are currently free. Here they are again. We've got Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who was actually at the Midtjylland game. Sean Dyche, Erik ten Hag, Big Sam Allardyce, Gareth Southgate, Xavi, Luciano Spalletti, Thiago Motta, Marco Rose, Edin Terzic, and Russell Martin are all currently on the market. Now, the 2 names that seem to be floated most are Sean Dyche and Rafa Benitez. Good lord. With some of the quality on that list, some of the options available, those 2 are the most likely. Yeah, it could be worse. It could be like Brendan Rodgers, I guess. Still not brilliant, though. Now, if those 2 are the front runners, the leading managers to get the job, then it has to be Dyche. And honestly, at this point, I wouldn't even hate it. I'd probably welcome it, to be fair. Dyche would bring us back to our defensive roots. He'd make us hard to break down and just really steady the ship, which is what we desperately need at the moment. Dyche knows the club too, often being seen at games, especially in our first season in the Premier League, and was a youth player at the club whilst Cloughy was manager. Now, he never went on to make a first team appearance. He broke his leg, and that sort of curtailed his growth somewhat. So unfortunately, he never actually played for Forest in the first team, but he was still there as a youth player. And his assistants, Wone and Stone, have also played extensively for Forest and are also well liked by supporters who managed to watch them play, and us younger lads as well. We know what they did for the club. Ange never really felt like the right fit for the club, to be honest. He never got Forest, and that was also reflected in his press conferences. You know, watch any of them from his time at Forest. It's always me, me, me. It's never about us. It's never really about the club. It's that he won a trophy at Spurs. He's going to win a trophy again. The only thing he's won is a trip to the job centre. But Sean Dyche, Ian Wone, Steve Stone, they get the club. They've played for Forest. They get Forest. They know Forest. It seems like a much better fit than Ange did. Yes, you know, Dyche is not a blockbuster name, and, you know, you'd be forgiven for not really being excited about the prospect of him becoming our manager. But he knows the Premier League, and he knows how to keep a club up, something we should not be talking about after last season. But here we are. You know, he kept Burnley up, got them into Europe as well, and kept Everton alive as well. 2 clubs who did not have the personnel that Forest do. I think it's very, very fair to say that Forest's current team is better than whatever Dyche had at Burnley or Everton. I think that's fair. We would be the best team that he's managed, especially in terms of player quality. You have a owner that plows money into the team. We would get backed if necessary. Dyche would get backed if necessary. It's an interesting one. I wouldn't be thrilled if Dyche was our manager, but it makes sense as well. Like, if you just take a step back, it does make sense as an appointment. Also, being reunited with Chris Wood, who he managed back at Burnley when he was a 10-goal-a-season striker. He could get Woody firing again. You know, the confidence he was given under Nuno. You know, a 20-goal season. You know, if Dyche can give him that confidence as well, then he could kick on again. He'd be much better suited to Dyche ball than Ange ball as well, which would see him be a bit more effective just in general, I think. And there's no reason we can't climb up the table under Dyche. From what I've seen on Twitter, you know, the tweets I've seen, the Forest fans that I speak to, most fans seem pretty receptive to the idea of Dyche as well. And I don't blame them. It seems like the best of a bad bunch, really. And I'm not saying Dyche is a bad manager. He's not. I love the bloke. But with the season we've just had, it's not the best appointment. It's not the best thing to hear that your club is thinking of appointing Sean Dyche, but needs must, you know. And with his connection to Forest, I think getting the fans on side would be pretty easy as well. Ange never really seemed to do that or even attempt to do that. So, yeah, I mean, Nuno did it after replacing Cooper, another popular manager. Nuno did it well. Ange just hasn't even bothered. And as such, it's just been very messy and quite toxic as well. Now, Marco Silva is the club's ultimate target. I think that's pretty obvious at this point. But we just won't pay compensation. And it seems like a fairly hefty release clause as well for a manager who will be free in the summer. So what do? Do we hire Dyche to see out the season? Would he even take on a contract of that length? Who knows? Because it's a job for him as well at the end of the day. But maybe, you know, if he proves he can do it with Forest and actually get us up the table and some decent results, maybe that might raise his profile a bit for another job in the future. Who knows? So, I mean, ideally we get Silva now, but that looks very, very unlikely, almost impossible. So if Dyche is the one to come in, if we get him to see out the season, then get Silva for free in the summer, that would be quality. But again, if Dyche wants a contract of that length, we don't know. So it could be a major stumbling block in actually bringing Dyche in. I wouldn't have taken Dyche as the Nuno replacement, but after experiencing just 8 games of Ange ball, I'm going to welcome Dyche with open arms. Mate, he'll mastermind a victory against Man United, then he'll be in Rock City on the same night. Like that, he gets Nottingham. So if we can't get Silva, get Dyche. Or one of those German blokes that are free. Just please do not sign Rafa Benitez. Oh my god. That might be a worse appointment than Ange. I'm not going to lie. Benitez he's past it, quite frankly. Do not appoint him. Please. There are many available managers better than Benitez. I've listed some previously, okay? Hopefully the club make the right decision this time. Hopefully Marinakis has seen the error of his ways. And hopefully we get a competent manager who can win us some games of football, score some goals, and concede a lot less. That is my hope. Hopefully a manager is in by Porto and he masterminds a little victory for us. Porto are going to be a very, very hard team to beat. I have no doubts about that. But some new manager delusion can go a long way. So fingers crossed. Hopefully. It's never a dull day following Forest, and recently that's not been for many good reasons. So hopefully we can turn things around. I'll see you guys later. Peace.